Um, okay. So I still need dungeon masters. I need 5. And you have to be available, because the way it's going to work, I think I've said before, is actually for you guys, my friend Ian will be your DM, and run all the dungeon masters through the adventure, and then you will each get a copy of the adventure, or actually a link to where you can purchase a copy of the adventure. Everyone's going to have to buy the adventure eventually. It is $3.99 on I think Drive Through RPG. So I'm sure somebody's just going to buy it's a PDF, and distribute it through nefarious means. I'm not going to stop that, but $4 for the poor person who actually created the thing we're all going to play doesn't seem like a horrible ask. So yes, I see a number of people who have volunteered. What I want you to do is in Canvas, share in Canvas. This is the student view. I have made a new group called DMs, or just DM. I actually said just DMs, but for some reason it didn't put the S. So the 5 of you, I need 5. If you could put yourself in that group, then I will have 5 DMs and I will know who you are. I have 4. I need 5. I have 5. Thank you, 5. That was quick and easy. Okay.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, I had to beg in 3 o'clock.
Holy cow.
So, okay, it's obvious they would much rather play with my friend Ian than with me, because I offered to. I'm DMing the 3 o'clock class, but Ian is going to DM for you guys. So we're going to use pre-gen characters so that you as DMs don't have to walk everybody through how to roll up a character. We're just going to give you sheets. Yes, you are the better class. At 3 o'clock, I tell them they're the better class from 3 to 4. From 4 to 5, you guys are the better class. So you're going to have to do the pre-gens. We think we figured out a way. We're going to do this via Roll20, right? Which is a free online tabletop. Everybody can go and make themselves an account there. It's free to make yourself an account. I just put it in the chat. I will post this as part of the assignment for next week. Not a huge thing, but we think we figured out a way to my friend Ian and I are making like all the maps and all the tokens for the online desktop, and then we will make, once you've been players, we will make you co-GMs or co-DMs, and then you can copy the game to your account, and that way you don't have to redo all the work that we've done. Okay. Good. I'm glad you have experience with Roll20. I spent the entire, or at least most of the week before D-term started, trying to figure out how to do D&D online. And so I tried Fantasy Grounds. I tried Tabletop Simulator, I think. and I tried Roll20, and Roll20 was the only one where we could all do it for free. Um, in the other cases, either DMs had to pay a lot of money to do it, or everybody had to pay a bit of money to do it. It's not all that hard. We'll show you. I'll post some tutorial videos on how to work it, and for one night, it won't be terrible. So I will send out a link to there's probably, I think we have 8 pre-gens, and I will CC Ian so that the choose a character, first come first serve, first one to reply to the email and say I want the paladin gets the paladin. Simple. If somebody else gets the paladin, there's plenty of other characters, play something else. There will be 5 DMs playing, but once we get to breaking up into groups, you'll each have 4 players because there are 25 people, and that's how the numbers work. Okay. Okay, that's DM stuff, and we're going to run probably 7 to 11. Give or take. I always say we're going to cut it at 4 hours, or we're going to keep it down to 4 hours, and then I hit the 4-hour mark, and I'm like, oh, there's just this one little thing left. We can bang that out in 10 minutes, and then it's an hour later, and we've gone 5 hours. So we're gonna try. Next thing, reminder that character sheets are due tomorrow at 5. Right Club is due today at 5. And if you haven't done it already, I guess you should be doing that during class. And the quiz is due tomorrow at midnight, something like that. 5, I don't know. It's due tomorrow. So those are due dates. And this, I did the second half of Tacoma yesterday. Took about 2 hours. I finished the game. I got 7 out of 12 achievements. I want to go back in and get those last 4. I think I know what I still have to do. 5. Yeah, math is hard. Thank you, Karen. No, we will give you characters. But here's the thing with the characters, that we will give you the pre-gen sheets, and they're just PDFs of the characters. There will be blank sheets in the Roll20, right? Roll20 has a whole bunch of functionality if you put the stats in their character sheet. So one way to learn about your character is to go through and enter all your stats and figure out how the character sheet works in Roll20. That will make the game go faster when you're playing online, and that will allow you to get familiar with, well, how does a paladin swing a sword, or how does a magic user cast a spell, right? So one of the assignments next week is get all your stats into Roll20 as your character, and then take a screenshot of that character sheet from Roll20. And if you've done it, great, full credit. Mostly it's so that you're participating in the whole getting up and going on Roll20. I found that I started to put in all the character stats, and I realized that doing it for 5 characters was going to take me a whole another day and a half of work, and that was more work than I as a DM wanted to do, and that was what players should be doing. So I'm making the players do it instead of the DMs. Okay. Okay, so Tacoma is up. I didn't get your version of Tacoma up. It took like 2.5 hours to upload. I didn't get it up till today, so please watch it. I think I'll talk about Tacoma a little bit today, but mostly tomorrow. Um, and this weekend is or for next week this time, you should play Passage and Facade. I will provide links on Canvas to get both of them. They are both free. Passage takes exactly 5 minutes to play. You might want to play it 2, maybe 3 times at 5 minutes a pop. You know, just to see what you can see. Facade, you can finish Facade in 30 seconds. You get the bad ending, or a bad ending, but you can finish it in 30 seconds. I don't consider that really playing the game, so play it for more than 30 seconds, please. The average run through Facade takes about 20 minutes. So you might want to play it. There are various endings. You might want to play it more than once. I'll probably play it 2 or 3 times. I will be streaming those 2 games on Sunday at 3 on my Twitch channel. So, they work with Windows, but they don't work with Macs. And God knows what Linux systems y'all have, or Chromebooks or whatever. So if you can't get it to run, watch the Twitch stream because I'll be playing it. Will the reading quiz require us to get multiple endings? I don't think so. Not sure. Don't remember, but I don't think so. By the time the reading quizzes do, we will have talked about the various endings. So hopefully, between the 27 of us, we will have seen all the endings. I know what all the endings are, so I'll tell you. So, okay. That's business. Okay. Let's go back to the whiteboard. Share screen, whiteboard, share. Okay. So when last we met, I had done this, and this, and this is 1, 30, 90, 120. This is Act 1. This is Act 2. This is Act 3. Okay. And let me get the chat window in the corner so I can actually see what you're talking about. Okay. So, again, this was Hollywood screenplays. Doesn't necessarily apply to novels. Doesn't even apply to all screenplays, to all movies. I've got a 5.5 hour movie to watch. It's called Until the End of the World. It's the ultimate road movie. It's by Wim Wenders. It was made in 1991. Envisioned the future of 1999. Has one of the greatest music. The album actually did better than the movie, because he went to all these rock musicians and said, write me a song that you think you'll be playing in 1999. This was in 1990, basically. So all these rock musicians were like, cool, yeah, I could do that. Um, and so you get the opening of the movie. It opens at a party, um, and on a screen at the party, there's David Byrne from Talking Heads back then, but now he's just David Byrne, singing a song, and they had aged him, and they gave him perfectly white hair, um, and wrinkles, and it was just his head spinning around as he sang the song. Um, and if you compare that to what he actually looked like in 1999, spot on, spot on. So anyway, um, tangent, sorry. So obviously Act One in the 5.5 hour, it's called Until the End of the World. It came out on Blu-ray in the Criterion collection just 2 months ago. It's one of my favorite movies, but I've only seen I think there's a 2 hour, 2.5 hour, somewhere between 2 and 2.5 hour cuts, that the studio made him do the 2.5 hour cut, and he secretly made a 5.5 hour cut. And that was not shown until 2000 something, and even then only in a handful of theaters. So I've never seen the 5.5 hour, and I have it on Blu-ray, and I've been meaning to watch it, but it's a hard sell for my wife. I'm like, do you want to watch a 5.5 hour road movie about the end of the world? And she's like, no. And I'm like, but it's fun. It's funny. She's like, yeah, no. And I'm like, it stars Sam Neill and um, William he plays the general in the Avengers. You know, the guy with the mustache in the Avengers. Um, anyway, um, when he was young, he was quite the hunky guy. And Max von Sydow. Anyway, great movie. Can't wait to watch it. Still trying to get my wife to watch it. William Hurt, thank you. I always get him mixed up with John Hurt. So William Hurt, Sam Neill, the woman, she's German, who's in all of Finn Vender's movies. She's beautiful, and a host of other characters. Anyway, ultimate road movie. So I'm already late because I went on a tangent. So a 5.5 hour movie would obviously, the script would be 530 pages. No, 5 times 6 is 330 pages, right? So the page numbers would be different. Other little fact, they shot most of the movie without a script, which is probably why it ended up being 5.5 hours long. And they traveled all over the world, and it was paid for by Sony. So in the future of 1999, as envisioned by 1990, everything was a Sony product. It's kind of amazing. So what we start out with in Act One is what is always what's the world like? What's happening? What is normal, right? So we set the bar for normal. So, for instance, in Witness, we get the funeral, we get the train trip, because I think you guys pointed it out to me. Her sister in Baltimore is expecting. So we've got death and life. Funerals are events, but they're also a normal part of life. The glimpses we see of the funeral are very much the service, the gathering at the house, the big feast kind of thing, the food everywhere, um, the widow surrounded by women, um, the uh, the kind of line of people offering condolences. All these things are normal, not just for Amish, but for lots of cultures, right? That's how we deal with death, or how many cultures deal with death. Um, so while it is not every day, it is a normal part of life. Um, so right here, right about page 17. Don't ask me why, just works out that way. I've read lots of screenplays. Whenever we try to um, identify this moment, which we call the catalyst moment. Oh, you know what? Switch over. Actually, let's do undo, undo. Okay, now switch over. We'll do the catalyst moment. This is when everything changes, right? So in Star Wars, A New Hope, right? The movie's called Star Wars. So our normal world, our first half of our act one, is a world of war, a world where Imperial Star Destroyers capture Princess Leia's ship. Darth Vader kills a whole bunch of people. Stormtroopers and guys are shooting. The droids escape. There's the brutal desert of Tatooine, and we don't even get to see our hero. We don't meet our hero at all until 15 minutes in. In Witness, what's the catalyst moment? When does everything change? Murder. Yeah. We don't meet our hero until after the murder. If I was looking the other night when we watched Witness, and the murder happens at 16 minutes and 32 seconds. So John Book arrives at about 17 minutes. That's when we first see him. And we get his normal. The second half of the first act is well, this is also known as the inciting incident, but I kind of think that's redundant. But a lot of screenplay books will call it the incitement, right? Where the story starts, really, basically, where things are put in motion. And so the rest of Act One is our hero moving through the world, but still part of his world, right? So they are dealing with the consequences of the catalyst moment. In this case, the murder, right? But it's normal for John Book to deal with a murder. This is what he does. That's his job. He's got to deal with witnesses. He takes suspects, shows them to witnesses, asks questions of people, and investigates. And there is nothing out of the ordinary. He can always return to his former life. He goes home at the end of the day. He drops them off at his sister's and he goes home. In Star Wars, A New Hope, what's the catalyst moment? When does everything change?
Darth Vader?
Nope. Remember, it's about the hero.
Then the aunt and uncle.
That's a little later.
Or would it be no, old Ben? Obi-Wan? Or
Luke
R2D2?
buys R2D2. We're narrowing in. 16 minutes in, we don't meet Luke until 15, 16 minutes in. What changes everything for Luke?
Oh, the Princess Leia hologram.
Yes. Help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. Oh my God. Now suddenly, here's a beautiful girl asking for help. I have to help her. Where is she? How do I get, hey, get that back. Right? And we already know he wants, well, the funny thing is, Luke wanted to go off to the academy. What's the academy? It's where TIE fighter pilots are trained. Right? He wanted to go off and become a TIE fighter pilot. He would have been one of the bad guys. If he would have gotten his way. He doesn't care. He just wants to fly fighters. Everything changes for him. Yeah, that's fine. This is why I use witness, because there are a bunch of people. Right. He wanted to leave before Uncle wouldn't let him, but he wanted to. He says to Uncle Owen, you said you'd let me go to the academy this season. And Owen says, you got to stay here. So getting back to Witness, which everyone has seen, because I assigned it, but I always use Star Wars, and I'm not spoiling. I don't care about spoiling a movie that came out in 1977. So this next one, let me go to this, not that, this right here, is where we can't turn back. So this is really to go with Hero's Journey. That's where you cross the threshold, right? So in Star Wars, that's when the house gets blown up and Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru get turned into smoke and skeletons. He can't go home because there is no home. When is it in Witness? Anything? When the guy shoots?
It might literally be when they cross the threshold of the house that they're staying in. No, that's not the protagonist, is it?
Yeah, no, it's when John crashes the car. It's when he's attacked in the garage. So, so it's right in there. But think about how the movie changes in basic ways, right? While we're at the shootout, we're still in Philadelphia, and he's got to change his plan, but he's still going to go hide out. He's going to make some moves and catch the bad guys, right? It's when you're right, when he crashes the car, that's when we lose kind of his point of view. He becomes that feverish, helpless person. And he's among the Amish, right? So the entire second act is John Book becoming Amish. And those are the obstacles that he overcomes, or that he faces and overcomes. So for the rest, for the biggest chunk of the movie, it's about this fish out of water, this violent police detective learning the ways of the Amish. So the very first thing he has to do is not die. Then we get, if you can uh, if you can fix a car, you can work on the farm. So he has to milk the cow. And think about this; these are small things. He has to. Every movie has these same three components: catalyst, crossing the threshold, and becoming Amish. Yeah, everything does. um, he what else does he do? What are his obstacles that he overcomes and becomes more Amish? He dresses plain, right? Yes. He, well, we'll go down here. Barn raising is kind of one of the big ones. Give up the gun. You're right.
He helps rebuild the mailbox he hit down.
That's all the way down here.
He makes the toy for the kid.
Mailbox. Well, yeah, toy making. What about give up the gun, barn raising, loving? He falls in love with Rachel. Milk the cow. Yeah. Limited access to tech. He starts out making reference jokes like, honey, that's darn fine coffee, right? And they don't get it because they don't have TV. So leave civ jokes behind that they don't get, right? The whole rivalry with Daniel. There's the relationship with Samuel. Yes, he learns to drink lemonade. He learns to sip instead of gulp. That is the Amish way, right? So you can see I've kind of mixed things up, but really there's a kind of procession of, healing is not really a test of him. It's his healing factor in Wolverine terms. Milking the cow is small stakes, but giving up the gun is larger stakes. Falling in love with Rachel is larger stakes. The barn raising and getting along with the larger community is bigger stakes. His relationship with the boy is large stakes. Even his relationship with Eli. Eli doesn't trust him, and even yells at him for the dancing. But we get at the very end, be careful among the English book, where he's earned the respect of the elders of the Amish community. So just like I said before, this we get a rising action, right? And that's because I can't draw well. But right about, no, I want this one. Right about here, just before Act 3, he fails. And this is common. The hero has overcome many obstacles, but he gets to a big obstacle and he fails. Right. He punches a tourist. Which is great to watch, right? It's a great scene where here are these 80s bullies picking on Amish people, and they don't realize they're about to get an ass whooping from Harrison Ford, right? And nothing better to watch in the movies than an ass whooping from Harrison Ford. But while we may be cheering, ha ha ha, partner's death is the what pushes him to fail, right? Because he hears about the partner's death on the phone, and then he goes as they're going back to the farm. That's when his emotions overcome him. He can't see the forest for the trees, and he wants to hit somebody. His violent nature comes out. He wants, if his partner hadn't died, it would be harder to buy that he would take it out on these bullies. But he does fail. He is not Amish, right? And usually this is where in rom-coms, this is where the secret comes out and the relationship falls apart, right? You started dating me on a bet, right? Or you were, well, you started dating. I'm trying to think of other ones recently. Usually it's some sort of I'm not really, I was lying the whole time kind of thing, right? And your rom-com partner finds out and breaks up with you, and there's all sorts of montages of sad person wandering around kind of thing, and sometimes you'll cut to like 3 months later, when they give it another shot for the third act. But here, this third act break is when the hero has been stripped of everything. There's nothing left. They can't go back to what they were. They've tried becoming something new and they've failed. And so they have to put everything on the line. They bet everything in order to overcome one last obstacle. And in this case, think about this. Once we get back to the farm after the punch out, he knows that he's got to leave. Eli knows he's got to leave. We don't even see John Book. We see it from Rachel's point of view once he gets back. That he'll be leaving in the morning. We see him out putting the mailbox back up, restoring the world so that he can leave it. And in this case, I want to quick aside. There's a bunch of sayings that there are only 7 stories ever. There are 3 stories ever. I like there are 2 stories basically, and essentially there's 1 story. The 2 stories are a hero goes on a journey, right? And those journeys can be physical journeys or journeys of the spirit. So basically, this is a hero's journey, but there's also a stranger comes to town. And the stranger comes to town is really just a hero goes on a journey from the opposite viewpoint, right? And stranger comes to town basically has 3 forms. The first form, stranger comes to town, big blob is town, little blob is hero or stranger, and stranger is repulsed, right? So, and that's what happens here. Stranger comes to town, tries to be part of town, can't become part of town, and so goes either to the next thing or goes back where they came from. The other way is stranger comes to town and is absorbed by the town and becomes part of the town. So there were somebody, I think in the other class, but in the chat while we were watching Witness, was like, this is the plot of Cars, right? And I maintain that it's not the plot of Cars because, Witness predates Cars by, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. And Cars was also a direct ripoff of another movie called Doc Hollywood, starring Michael J. Fox, where a newly minted doctor is driving his Porsche across country. He's got a position in the biggest plastic surgery firm in Los Angeles, and he's going to make bank. And he's in the middle of East Oshkosh, wherever in the Midwest, and his Porsche breaks down. And of course, his car gets towed to this bumpkin garage, and the bumpkin says, well, we don't have the parts. We'll have to order the parts. And it's going to be 5 days before the parts get here, blah, blah, blah. And so he, this hotshot doctor, has to live in this little town. And he, does it sound familiar? Does this sound like Cars? Yeah. Go watch Doc Hollywood. It's Cars. And he learns to be a doctor for them. He learns what being a doctor is really about. It's about people, about helping people. Yeah, it's a good movie. And in the end, I'm going to spoil it for you. He learns to love. He learns that maybe the world isn't about money. And he decides to stay in little town in the Midwest, wherever it is. So he becomes part of the town. The third way this can end is the stranger comes to town and changes the town, right? And this is the plot of every Star Trek old series, original series, where Kirk shows up and, despite the prime directive, says the way these people are doing it is wrong, and then he fixes whatever's wrong about them. So the planet that is made war obsolete by doing computer simulations of war and then telling however many people to report for their deaths because the simulation said this many people died in this battle is wrong. And he stops it. And he changes the world. And sometimes they stay, sometimes they don't. Star Trek, they never stay. But there's Brave New World. He changes the world. The Savage comes and shows them actually, I think he's repelled in that one. He's sent back. I'm trying to think of another. We'll go with Star Trek. Okay. So third act, we've got the final showdown. Oh yeah, Doctor Who. You're right. Thank you, Griffin. Many of Doctor Who's are showing there was the Tom Baker years were always the companions would be on one side and the Doctor would be on the other side, and he'd bring them together to stop fighting, and there would be a stirring speech, and then they unionize. So the third act, I think you'll all agree, is the fight with the three cops. I know I'm over time. Let me just finish this. The fight with the three cops, he doesn't have his gun. He uses the farm. He uses the ways of the Amish to overcome the three dirty cops. He kills a guy with corn. He baffles another guy. He baffles the same guy with cows, right? Sure, he shotguns Danny Glover, but only because he killed the other guy with corn. Yes, death by grain. And finally, I saw in the chat a lot of people were like, oh my God, the kid's going to shoot the last guy. The kid's going to get the handgun and shoot the last guy. Oh my God. And then the kid rings the bell, calls all the witnesses. And because of there are too many people to kill, the bad guy gives up. Yeah. So the thing is, in the original script, you guys were right. The kid, you saw Eli doing this, right? And the kid mistook this for this, right? And went and got the gun, and shot the bad guy. And it wasn't until they were on location at the Amish farm, which is an actual farm in Lancaster, that had the bell, that the writer, the director, I'm not sure who came up with it, but they were like, what if he doesn't shoot him? What if he just rings the bell? And that bell was just there and they used it. He didn't know well, the writer didn't know to use it, hadn't imagined it, right? So they changed the ending on location on the day, and they got all the Amish actors to come over the hill, and everybody agreed that was a much better ending than what was originally written, because they defeated violence with nonviolence. And that's the through line of the entire movie. Then this part, denouement, right? Most movies cut this as short as possible. We have a fairly long one in Witness, where there's a bunch of the bad guy getting taken away by the cops, Book in his tan suit again, his Philadelphia suit, smoking and talking, and then finally driving away, and a brief nod to Daniel as Daniel arrives in perfectly sexist 80s manner to claim Rachel, because of course he's got to claim Rachel. No woman can be without a Okay, so we'll pick this up tomorrow. We'll get on the hero's journey. And remember, character sheets are due tomorrow at 5. Okay. Thank you all for coming. Let's stop the screen share and stop the recording.